honestly look as if they've done 200.
Yeah. I completely agree. Like, I've some people, yeah, they're 200 gags in, and yeah, it's like I don't know, when I'm 200 gags in, if I was still stuttering on stage, and do you know what? I think if you bring a notebook on stage and you're past 50 gigs and it's not
Oh,
fresh material on that day, you do kind of need to draw a line at some point and say either I have a mental disability where I can't remember stuff, which do you know what I mean, like
yeah,
wear
yeah,
the
yeah.
badge, or no, but
But
or just I don't know. I think
no, but I actually wonder what happens. Genuinely wonder this. I wonder what happens, right? So, because when you go to these gigs and people are performing, you do see the range of people from being like unbelievably good at an open mic level, and the people who are just starting out. And then you get somebody comes up and it's genuinely their first time, and they're unbelievable. Like I saw this lady, Ellie Cook, the other day, and I think it was her third gig that she'd done in like 3 days. And you could see everyone in the audience was just going, she's unbelievable. Like she's like hitting the timing. She was pausing perfectly. The way the misdirections were all perfect. And you just sort of go, I just wondered how it felt. Because as a person who's done like seven like live gigs,
yeah.
you're sort of going, that's impressive. And maybe I'll get there. But I wonder if you're like a 200, 250, 300 deep and that's what you're watching and you're like, they just did that like straight away. And I haven't even got close to it. I wonder what people think like as they go, can I
I
keep
think
going?
I think you'd it would bring you down to earth a bit, and like you would sort of have to self-assess yourself. But also, I think you'd have to also ask the question, what do I want out of comedy? Then,
Yes.
if I'm going up, and Joey, I'm going up to have a laugh. I don't
Yeah.
give a shit either way. Do you know what? Don't give a shit. But if you're someone like, like we had Lewis on,
Yeah.
Lewis, he wants to make comedy a career.
Yes.
So if he was now going up still with a book on stage,
Oh yeah,
and
he's
he
got
was
to know.
like,
Yeah, he's got to know. He's got to go up there and look professional and be
yeah,
spotted. And yeah, yeah, exactly.
and
It is different when you go up there. And as you say, because I mean, I sort of started it as a hobby, and
yeah.
it was, and why did I start it as a hobby? Well, probably since
What's the
the
first
age of
question?
like,
Hey, I asked for fucking questions, Des, okay? Des, sorry, first of all, hello, welcome to another episode of Sit Down for Stand Up.
Take a soft
We got,
start.
yeah, we got Desmond from Jesmond. So, Des, why did you get into comedy? Your part.
Oh, cheers, thank
For
you.
some people.
So
God.
I think probably from a very young age, like growing up in Newcastle, I think Geordies generally you have to be a little bit funny,
Yes. Yeah.
and you sort of growing up, and people would say to you, "Oh, you should do comedy," and I always I really wanted to do it, but I was always terrified. And also, about 25 years ago, no idea how you did it. Like, and I used to watch comedy, and we used to go up to the Edinburgh Fringe, and we watch people, but I was always like, "How do you do it?" And then life and career and family, they all happened, and so I never did it. But always through my career, even because I work in advertising.
Yeah.
People would always be like, "So why you should be a comedian?" And I always just used to sort of laugh it off a little bit and go, "Yeah, no, I've seen really good people. I know what they do." And then just this year, I got made redundant, and I was like, "Okay, I want a hobby. I want something to sort of make me laugh." And I met someone who said, "Oh, you should speak to this guy Nick." And Nick happens to be at the Hearts Comedy Workshop. And I just went and met him for a coffee, and he was like, "Oh, you should definitely come along." And I was like, because I just had stupid stories that I was telling, and he says, "Well, yeah, they're definitely stories, but you should come along." And so I went along to, Duncan Hart and Mark Cox and set it up, and I went and did that, and I did that for probably 3, 4 months of just going and like working with comedians who are just, going up. They get their time to sort of either, perform, talk about things they're thinking about, and then have that sort of interaction with other people without sort of that thing of open mic where, and you see it actually. So I didn't realize how lucky I was, like going up in an open mic and going, right, I've not read this out to anybody yet, and I'm going to read it out, and as I say it, no one's going to laugh, and I'm going to go, oh right, you don't find that funny, okay. So I had this luxury experience of going, of people really early going, that's not funny, that's just a story. What are you doing? Okay. So my first experience was actually through them. Um, and I had the luckiest first gig, which I think they joke about that. Um, it's one of well, Duncan's kind enough. I think he's being kind to me. He says it's one of the best first gigs he's ever seen. But ever since then,
Nice.
I've been chasing that first gig because all the other stuff then comes into it. Where in the first gig, the adrenaline just kicks in and you're like you're there and in the moment and the crowd just happened to be in the right mood and for whatever reason you're interacting and you're enjoying it and you come off and it's like the best buzz you've ever had and then you're like oh yeah I love this, I want to do this again. And the second gig I did, it was a totally different setup in the sense it was on a stage and there were lights like just beaming down at my face and I just remember going, well, I can't see any of the crowd.
Oh, it's dog shit when that
I,
happens. And when you can't see
and,
the fucking front row, it's yeah.
yeah. And you're just going, and then you realize that you're not in the room, and you only realize this really after you're not in the room. You're then going through your set, and there's something that happens where the crowd just smell it that you're not there live in some ways. Like there's some feeling that they get that I'm just telling these stories that
Mm.
I've like written, and they feel written, and I can just feel myself going. Oh, this is like totally the opposite to the first one. Like, and it was just you sort of come off going, well, people still laughed, but I feel a bit violated by it, like because I've not done what I thought the thing I could just do. You know, it's weird.
Was the first one you did like around like the people at Hearts? I know I've spoken to a lot of you guys there, like, and some of the people who go there, like uh, Christopher Norton Walker, George
Yeah.
Knightley, Duncan Lewis. Like, you got some fucking heavy hitters there, and you got people who will they're not gonna sugarcoat shit for you.
Oh no.
Like, if you're shit, they'll be like, mate, that was shit.
Yeah.
Like, but in a loving way, do you know what I mean? But they'll call a spade a spade. Was your first one around them? And it was like, and
Yeah.
then like you then alienated yourself on the second one, and they were like, right, let's, you know,
Yeah, it's very much like the first one was around them, and actually the second one was like with Phono. And it was just, I think, the big difference being it was that shift to being on stage. And actually, the other big thing, and I do think this is something which I think a lot of people who've been on this journey and who talk about it will mention, is the first gig was very much, a brilliant gig. But everyone that was in the crowd, who was a real audience, they weren't paying to be there. They'd got tickets, they'd come, they weren't paying. So they were probably, and also you're set up as like it's your first ever gig. So everyone's so nice and like no one wants you to fail. And then the second gig was very much like I was obviously not getting paid, but it was like a paid, people have paid to come in. And that paid audience is, I've paid money and I expect you to make me laugh and I expect this to be good because there's money involved. And it's such a different vibe to actually, even in the open mic scene, where in the open mic scene, we all know you can turn up and you literally can perform to other comedians. And the other comedians aren't like an audience in the same way because they're sort of analyzing you and going, oh, he did that, he did this, would I do that? And and it was that sort of shift of it being onto a stage with lights where you suddenly go, oh, and this fear. I remember really clearly the first gig I didn't feel any fear. And the second gig, there was this moment where I just remember thinking, I'm standing on a stage and there's like lights on me, and there's a person you could sort of see out of the dark looking at you like you're an idiot and they're not laughing, and you're like, okay, right. And it's always those people in the crowd that you find as well. I mean, I did a gig, a brilliant gig in Hearts in a cafe, and there was one woman in the front row whose face was just, I mean, it's not great for a podcast, but her face was the stillest face you've ever seen, as if there's just no movement. And obviously, you look around and you look at other people who are laughing, and you're like, okay, we're fine. But your
visual life
brain
of
just
deadpan.
goes, you just, yeah, like total deadpan.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and I kept looking, yeah, and you're desperate. There's a weird thing that I think in comedians that they're like, I just want to make that person laugh now. Like, there's something I've got to crack at this moment. And then at the end, I came off and it was sort of still bothering me a little bit. And I was like, oh man, this is like, why didn't she find this funny? And she's come up to me and she's gone, I'd just like to say that was, I was brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
It was like,
And I
show
was
your
like,
fucking face then.
no,
You
you
know,
need to smile, like do something.
but some people get off on that. Like, what was it? I've seen who the fuck was it? Oh, I'm gonna lose this. And it was on a Comedy Unleashed one, And like this couple, they go to gigs and they sit at the front and they do that on purpose.
Really?
They'll sit their arms crossed, nothing
Oh, that's mean.
like that, and that's the thing they get out of comedy nights because they'll then live in your head
Yeah,
rent
yeah, yeah.
free. And
That
like so,
they do, but they do because you just you stare at them and you're like, oh please, like what are you wanting me to do? And weirdly, I think there's the performative nature of comedians who we seek laughter and we seek those connections. That
approval 24/7.
it's such a weird like you're holding a knife at me and I'm like, please laugh. Like oh I'm that needy, just laugh.
You look at some people in the room and you're like, you know what? I don't give a shit if you like me
Yeah,
or don't like me. But if
yeah.
it's somebody you think, right, you're my crowd, you're gonna love me,
Oh
and you
yeah,
get nothing from them, you're like, that one hits hard a little bit.
yes, and also, funny enough, like because I'm doing this sort of set that you sort of realize that you do the same set and you try and improve it each time that you're sort of on it. Is the order of the jokes becomes really weirdly important depending on the room, and I wasn't expecting that. So there's a degree to which, like outside of London,
You
I
done
sort
much
of
London?
feel you can be slightly more like horrible as a persona without sort of making yourself giving yourself a likability too quickly. Whereas in London, you have to really make yourself likable quicker. So just recently did a G&B gig at the Bell, which was run by Kyle, which actually it was a great night. I mean, everyone performing was like top draw. Sometimes you go to some nights and you're like, "Well, some people are bad," but I changed the order of my set. And it was really weird. I don't know particularly why, because I hadn't gone up. As I walked up onto the stage, I hadn't said to myself, I'm going to change the order. But there was something in my head when I think, and this is weird as I say this out loud because you don't know my set. I was like, my blind sister has to kick me in the nuts much earlier than I really want her to, right? Which is like this sort of weird, like, how can I get that in quickly? Because my set does revolve around growing up with a blind person at
So, what
home.
type of comedy do you do? Is it like one-liners? Is it storytelling, deadpan?
So it's very much storytelling, and it's storytelling that's sort of based in that. And I think, some people can do stories and they can just be completely made up, and they're just brilliant at it, and they have the imagination. So I've got my stuff that works. As I have tried that other style, where you try and really make stuff. I've tried one-liners, but is that sort of authentically these things happen to me, and they are things that happened. But then how do I make them funnier? How do I gag that up? How do I extrapolate off that? Because you have to have that thing of it doesn't always have to be true. And I think that's what I noticed when I first was doing it, is I was desperate for it all to be so ridiculously true, like you're telling a pub story, versus no, I'm now doing comedy, which is I'm telling you something, but I'm going to have some elements of comedy in there to make the laughters bigger. And then sadly, I say sadly, like I sort of text with Lewis about this actually, which was at my last gig, the best bit, ironically, because as you've probably noticed, I talk a lot and go on too much.
So they
Was
definitely
the
taught a
bit
fucking heart's comedy. I'll tell you that much.
which
Oh,
was the
you
bit that
love to talk.
which
Fucking, I
was
love this.
which was the
Go
bit that I was but it was the bit that I was silent. And it was this weird again, it was a weird moment where normally I race to this punchline. And it's around a thing that's true, but the extrapolation of it's not true, is when you grow up with a sibling that's got a disability, like my sister's registered blind, you do things where you do practical jokes on each other. You're a brother and sister, so you're not sort of going, oh, you're not going to do this. It's not funny. But we were at a crossing, and at the crossing, I just went, beep 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 beep. Right now the reality of it is she didn't walk because she knows me. She was just like, that was a terrible impression. My hearing's way better than like that awful impression you've just done of a crossroad beep. But in the set that I do, there's then this sort of thing of like, well, actually, and this did happen to a degree. Some old people started walking across the road, right? And so my thing is, I've never had a more awkward conversation with an ambulance crew, and then the policeman's arrived to be like, so what, and you're like, I didn't mean any of this to happen. And it's like, what were you trying to do? And I have this moment where it's like, the answer is quite straightforward. The answer is, I was just trying to prank my blind sister. But I realized that delaying saying that line as you just pull some faces of like, oh, like so awkward, like, oh, and you could feel the laughter in the crowd, almost not wanting you to give them the line because the line's almost a disappointment to the awkwardness of what do you say in that situation, which I think we can all relate to. But that was like a real lesson of you don't have to speak, you've got to be confident to not speak.
Silence is key sometimes, and I think when you sort of start out, you are rushed to get to the end because you're sort of like, oh, I want to get to the final funny because they'll love it, but in doing so, you are like killing part of the joke.
Yes. And
So
it's and when you're new, you're desperate to get the punchlines. And that's where I've noticed that's where you're not in the room when you're chasing your own punchline. And even actually lines that I don't know if you found this, but when you ad lib a line, so there's something happens in the room and the way that the laughter happens, and your brain just suddenly clicks and goes, "Oh, I've got to build on that." And when it happened to me the first time, it was so natural, and it was to do with the fact that this sounds awful, but my parents took my blind sister to Madame Tussauds. You know, like they like discounts and they could get into in
uh,
for free. Um, and so and this was true, and she was allowed to feel the models, and they gave to do that. And I was like, I have a setup about this, and the crowd did this funny thing. So obviously people laughed at I said I couldn't believe the bollocking that I got for the way that I was touching Princess Diana. And there's this really sort of interesting bit where some crowds will be like laugh at that, and some crowds are a bit like ooh, because it's like a sensitivity around Princess Diana. But the first time I did it, it felt really natural, and I hadn't written this before the set to go, to go. It's okay. She was alive in the 80s, right? Which then the crowd just laughed again, and it came up again, and then again as it died down, and I don't know why, I just went. But she did feel a bit stiff, and but then the next gig, I sort of felt like, oh, that's going to always be the thing that you can do because that's like the interaction you've happened. And the second time I did it, it was almost like I was trying to force that reaction from the crowd. And so in many ways I should have stopped at the first bit because they'd laughed. But I was so desperate to recreate this I thought this thing on the spot to get another laugh that I was almost going, no, no, but I thought of this build that you need to find also funny. But the crowd was like, no, we're not quite going with you in the same way. And that was a really weird feeling.
every room is different, and you know, I mean, like some crowds will reciprocate well to some things than others. Speaking about that bit, and I was like chuckling in my 2 cents because your mind works. Could you do a bit where it might be dog shit? As I'm saying it, I think it is dog shit. Where like she starts feeding your face and goes, "Oh, is it this actor?" Blah blah blah. Just like make yourself look like a prick.
Yeah, no, it's funny 'cause
It was your face, man. Who goes, "Oh, is it Jabba the Hutt?" No, fuck off. It's Des. Like, I don't know. That's dog shit.
no,
But
because I have been trying to think of other things or other people you could feel or like so funny enough there was when I was growing up there was a TV show film called Mannequin with Kim Cattrall, and Kim Cattrall was I think one of the first people I ever fancied as a kid. And I remember thinking, could I introduce Kim Cattrall into that moment? Because she would have maybe have been in Madame Tussauds. Could it be around that? But then you're thinking, and this is where, probably this at different crowds. If I did that joke, probably, I want to say like St. Albans, Hart, Stevenage, your audience age is at an age where they'll probably get your reference to
yeah, I don't know who
Mannequin,
the fuck
Kim
you're talking
Cattrall.
about.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Uh,
so Kim Cattrall's in Sex and the City.
See,
So,
I didn't know that. I'm 33. I've never
yeah,
watched
I'm
that.
46.
So
So I'm like, so
yeah,
your reference
that
point.
I would have not got
Yeah,
that
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
slightest.
And so the film is basically it's about a guy who dresses. I mean, it's so ridiculous as a concept. Dresses these windows in shops in America, and the mannequin comes to life, and they have this adventure, and it becomes romantic. But but as was just sort of discussed, it doesn't work because people don't have that. You have this reference in your head, but as you tell it to somebody, they're just going, "I have no idea who Kim Charles. I have no idea what the film Mannequin is," and that's.
Well, my thought process was you said that before you said you fancied them. I thought you was talking about a bloke because I
Mm.
only got the Kerry. I suddenly thought you said Terry. Then you said, "Oh, woman." So, first woman I fancied. So I was like, okay. So then my mind's trying to
Yeah,
catch up
yeah.
with what you're saying instead of actually listening to the material.
Yes. And it is, and it's that it's trying to work out that, and I was trying to work out who, obviously, Thatcher would have been there in the 80s. They're trying to think about who would have realistically been there, and also, does it matter? That's the other bit.
Wolf, who was the robot from Red Wolf who was bald and
Oh, Crichton.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah, Crichton could be like, she feels me and thinks I'm
yeah,
Crichton. Yeah, yeah,
do that
yeah,
one. There you go. Feels a ball bag, Boris Johnson. I don't know,
yeah,
like
yeah, and it's
things.
trying to work out the reactions and also like which I get to because I do have a bit of a setup previously to it where as she feels the models. There's a thing about the fact that she suddenly I sort of go. It's the first time she found out that I wasn't as ugly as I told her. I wasn't as a good
Like
looking.
that. But when you said like doing like you're like interacting with the crowd, and my crowd work is far far from perfect.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, like I'm not the best at crowd. What the fuck's that going on? Brilliant. My crowd work's far from perfect. How do you find doing crowd work whilst being a storyteller, and then going back to where you was in the story?
that's a great question. I think when I was well, so it happened to me the other day where I just got a bit of luck. So there was a guy in the audience who'd been picked on a little bit by the MC, and it turned out he was a very good climber. So like he'd been competed in like national UK championships. And it just seems so perfect for the fact that I'm jealous. So my blind sister's actually a gold medalist world champion. And I like I was like my thing is I'm very jealous of her. She got all these perks, and that actually makes me look really bad because she's done all this and she's blind and look at me, what have I done? And I just went up and I just found myself looking him at the crowd and going, this is a little bit of a story about probably how your siblings feel about you. And so the fact that I was able to relate it into what I was doing, that helped. I think also the Geordiness weirdly sometimes helped. Like I had a guy when I came on, I was applauding. They'd introduced me as being a Geordie, Desmond from Jesmond, and I said that everyone was clapping, and we just won the Carabao Cup. So I was like, "Oh, amazing! Thank you. You've just taken me back there." And this guy was like a Liverpool fan and went like, "So says about Liverpool." And because I was a Geordie, I immediately just went, "Fuck off, mate! You had the '80s. Like, leave it out." Like, and because you were just prepared to just react like as you would as a Geordie, it kind of helps, and that was quite useful. Although the thing with probably my challenge at the moment is to do with accents, like because I don't, people will be like, "You don't sound like a Geordie," um, and I can do impressions, but I haven't put any like impressions or accents into my sets yet, and it's trying to work out how do I do that, and it's
Why do you want to do that? Like, if you're a good storyteller, leave it as that.
I think it's because some of the stories. So I've got a story I'm working on at the moment, which is it's a true thing. So I lived in Glasgow, and I really this sounds so stupid. I wanted to go and play a game of darts, right? And I was like, I want to go play darts. I was working in a supermarket called Quick Save, which no longer exists, but like think Aldi but lower. And there was these guys, these guys. I was like, oh, they must have a dartboard at their pub, right? So I was like, and I got invited to their pub in Easterhouse, right? Of all places to like decide to wander, I wouldn't do it with this accent. With my accent at the time, you were fine. But we've gone in the pub, and I'm looking around, and I'm genuinely looking around, going, "There's no dartboard. Like, why is there not a dartboard?" So I say to my mate from Quicksand, I'm like, "Why is there no dartboard?" And he just completely deadpan went, "It's too dangerous, mate. We can't have darts in this pub." I was like, what? I was like, well, what do you do? Like, what do you play? And again, like completely deadpan, he just went, dominoes. And I was like, are you kidding me? So this is the whole thing of like this then conversation's going to happen between there was a game on, and I happened to have a cough, and I've coughed. And this Glaswegians, honestly, I didn't think dominoes. I think they're the only culture Glasgow that can make pensioners games terrifying. Like it's like he's like looked up at me and gone. All right, pal, are you telling them my numbers, pal? I'm like, no, mate, I'm not messing around. I'm not telling you your numbers, mate. I've just got a cough. And it was just this thing of like, how's this game of dominoes become like you're in gangland and like you're terrified? And I've been thinking about the things of like, what other sports did they try that like didn't work? Like, bowls. No, because you could cave someone's head in with the ball. It's like it's too dangerous. And my mate at the time actually worked in a pub, and I talked to him about it after I'd been there, and I was like, mate, I couldn't believe like this pub. And I said, what happens in pubs? He goes, when it breaks out, and he goes, he was from like a bit further north Scotland, but he was like, my job's to dive over the bar and get the ashtrays, pal. I'm like, do you not get the glasses? Are the glasses not the things that are dangerous? And he's like, no, ashtray is like a dagger. Like it completely is like getting, and I'm going, Jesus Christ. Literally, my brain in comedic land now is going, I bet he was one of the most happy people alive when their smoking ban came in. It's like,
It's just a different breed altogether. But yeah, I love the Northern comedy side though. Like, was he fully pissed off with you with the dominoes, or was he being a shithouse?
I think he was genuinely. They would take. This is how bad it was. Like a proper competition night. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
it was like serious, but it was like the fact that I was standing there as a Geordie. I remember standing there going, I was thinking, I can't believe it. Like this is a game of dominoes that like people are like, and my head's going, dominoes is like a kid's game, or it's not. Why is this the thing? But the fact that they just couldn't be trusted with darts is also just like an amazing, like, oh, yeah, they may have had the dartboard, but like in my head, like, but that month there was just too many, too many deaths or like too many people lost their eyes. So they just decided, yeah, this isn't the game for us.
And they
You
like
know,
tried to do the Velcro darts after, and that was
yeah,
even worse.
they
Like,
went into the Velcro darts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I
they had
wondered
long
if they got their
darts, the ones you
dominoes
throw in the
checked. Like, do they
uh,
get the dominoes checked at the door in case there's too many sharp edges on them? Do you know, like,
got to be
it's
yeah,
like you got to come in and get
circular.
them scanned in a box say, before you're allowed to go and like place them on the table.
So there's Tony in the toilet doing dark dots on the empty domino
Yeah, yeah,
pins.
yeah, yeah.
It's fucking brilliant. You got that. You got that. Why did you decide to do, about your blind sister? And do
Yes.
you keep it, same, beat per minute along the whole way, or do the emotions go up and down with the story? But I love sad stories. I love even better, funnier sad stories.
Well, yeah.
Like finding the humor in morbid scenarios.
So I think it was. So how I ended up. I was going through different things in my life that happened. Was fine, fine. Now trying to find like an angle. And there was a thing that was true that when I was growing up, so my sister got sent away to school. So now you would just be integrated into the school within the area, but she got sent away. She got sent away to Liverpool. So she actually came back with a Scouse accent.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember really clearly she came in with a Scouse accent, and I remember going, "You're definitely adopted." Because it's like, you Scouse accent, you don't sound like how we all sound. And I thought about like her life versus my life, and there was a point where I was the youngest and she's older than me. And I remember being like oddly jealous, like because she went and did things that I didn't get to do. Like so she went, sailing, horse riding, archery. They took her on these amazing trips. And I remember like I was just in Newcastle. And I remember being like, okay. And my parents were obviously incredibly proud. But I remember thinking, I was like this sort of that age where you're going, okay, I've got this sister who's like really amazing and still continues to be so. Um, and you're like, okay, but what was that feeling in me? And I just found it funny that like me and my sister really get on. And I just thought it is kind of funny. And the things like that I was seeing, like situations and I've not used these in my sets, but when you've got someone in your family who's got a disability, you notice a lot of things that other people don't notice. And it sort of makes me laugh. It's like on the train coming in, you've got, see it, say it, sort it. Well, she's already scuppered because she can't see it. So she's like really being victimized because she can't get involved. And there's like
Yeah.
where they put Braille, and there's like an ongoing joke of where Braille is put for blind people. He's like, how do you expect the blind person to find that Braille? Like,
I've genuinely always thought that.
yeah, and it's
But
like,
at my gym, they were like the dumbbells. And it's like,
yeah,
who know? And I'm like, yeah, like, who knows that's there? How do they even know where the dumbbell rack is?
yeah,
Who
and
came
like
to it?
and how how you get shown around and you get shown how to use equipment and all these different things. And like I remember then thinking because I'm fairly useless a lot of the time is there's things where on the train there's a sign on the train which is like in an emergency this is what you've got to do, and obviously it's also written in Braille, right? But I was thinking like what situation are me and my sister in where there's something happened on the train, it's done something, and I'm going to rely on my sister finding that note rather than me. But also the
There's a
sad
great comedy bit there.
well, like the sad truth of like the fact that like she probably would be better getting it than me because I'd be probably quite useless.
I think you could do such a good punch down. I know this isn't a punch down because it's your love. Well, like in a case of murder, but then she misses a bit, so then she's got to go back to the beginning again.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
like, I don't
yeah.
know, like, there's like a warning sign, but she misses part of the speech of like the brow bit. Like, I mean,
Yeah, and,
because that is something I love to hear because you can do your dating actor stories,
yeah,
you can
yeah.
do your my ex girlfriend stuff. I love personal raw stories. It's
Yeah,
my
that are
favorite
based
type
on
of
this
comedy.
sort of like truth of like, and you're trying to because and the big thing was I do run it I've run it all by my sister because it's like because the important thing as well is I don't want it to be and it is the line that you're crossing it's not punching down and it's punching at me. It's like the thing is the
Yes.
joke is me and it's also educational like it like around like you don't and I know there's some blind comics now that that are performing as well and it's like it's giving them sort of that perspective on, but this is our life, and this is a thing that like you sort of should be a bit more aware of, and it's a way of sort of bringing that sort of to life, without it being too sort of preachy. Um, and that I just enjoy that, but I do find there are things that I haven't used that just like true things that I probably should put in. Like she was trying to prove to my parents that she could actually see, and we were driving in the car, and she was like, what can you see? And she was like, I can see sheep, pretty good guess given the countryside miles. Yeah, it's about cows again, nailing it. And then for whatever reason, she suddenly went, and elephants.
Call you bluff on that now.
It's like, yeah, you were doing so well.
So, okay, I don't know why this has gone to my mind today. Going into the 80s, because the one in like being like in the 80s stuff, the one thing I've always found quite amusing about comedy world is the porn, like the
The what,
braille,
sorry?
the porn.
Oh no, yeah, I've got a bit about it. I've actually got a bit about it.
I don't, yeah, so like I was talking about, your sister having like hit the brow porn. Where does she hide it? She thinks it's well hidden. No, it's just on the shelf.
Well, the interesting thing, so the interesting thing is actually audio. So the way I've looked at it is around the audio description. And the fact that like audio described porn's more medical and not very sexy, right? So it's kind of like it's sort of, and it's like what my thing is like sort of the whole thing of like, well, so what does it sound like and how's it like made something unsexy? And it's kind of funny like sort of the literal way that it's described, and then the fact that not many people probably want to be the voice of that. And so my whole thing is how can I get back at my sister? And so I have this whole thing of like, well, I could become the voice of porn. Like it's like just a silly premise around that. And but again, it's all these things that you don't think. And I remember, I did try and put in a bit around sort of Chris McCausland, being, winning Strictly, but it doesn't
Yeah,
really, it doesn't
he
work.
bossed
It
that.
doesn't
He
work, and also
bossed
it's
that.
not, and it's not personal to me, and it's not. There's something about it that doesn't work, because
You've
it's
really got me thinking now about like AI, no audio porn, and then she touched herself. Like I can
yeah.
never like imagine who's the voice actors
No,
to
no, yeah,
make it
like
actually sound like
the man is
authentic
stand like
instead of
the
robotic.
very literal, like the man is standing, his
And
penis is erect.
yeah,
Right? Like it's very odd to describe to think of the descriptions of that scenes and those moments.
yeah, because if it were like
Um,
Tony says, "Take your trousers off," but it's like the Tony says bit. It's like who would do the? There's a market here, maybe genuinely, maybe there's a market here to do the correct audible for blind porn. We can do it
yeah.
together. Gay blind porn. We've got a market there. Audible. There you go. Fuck off comedy. Here we come. So you've been going for about 8 or 9 times. No, 8 or 9 gigs now. Have you done any gong shows? Any competitions?
So Gong shows mainly through fear and also some experiences that people have had. I know recently, I think Rowan Asher has just sort of written about it, where it was quite an aggressive like MC and audience around kind of what was happening. And other comics have sort of mentioned this. And when you're new, there's a degree to which you're already incredibly delicate and vulnerable anyway, in the sense that you don't want to go and not get laughed at, but you definitely don't want to go up and get booed. And you're like, oh, I just don't want to. That's just too much.
Do you know what
And
my
then,
first gig was?
go on.
Comedy Store, Gong Show.
Really?
200 people, first show. 1 minute 23.
1 minute 23.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's it. But that is like it is going into the fight, and that does fill me with fear because also I think when you're doing, especially like with stories.
Yes. 100%.
Sometimes there's you've got like this bits of silence that you're building a tension in the room. I think Adam Bloom talks about, doesn't he? Like this sort of you're building that thing for the balloon to pop. And in a gong show, no one's wanting the tension. Like they're wanting like where's my laugh? Where's that moment? And I think some people are just really good at it. But also, I think in competitions, from what I've seen and people discussing it, is I think there are competitions where it's very much definitely who's good on the night, versus the ones which are, who's
And
brought the
who's the
most
crowd?
friends.
Who is in the crowd?
Yeah,
That makes a
who's brought
difference.
the most friends and who's like, and because I'm at the age I'm at, like it's hard to convince my friends with kids to like why don't you come to this for like 5 minutes of me doing this thing that oh yeah I might only be on there for a minute and a half.
But 100, I could not agree more. And especially like bringing friends into, to come see you. Like, because in London, a lot of it's bringers. So I've stopped gigging in London,
Yeah.
which is quite funny because I've been doing this for 3 months now. And without, sucking my own dick a little bit, I'm on paid work now
Yes. Oh,
in three
amazing.
months. I'm
That's
quite happy with that.
amazing.
Podcast nepotism, I've made it work to my favour. Can't lie. It is what it is, But fuck the rest. Haters gonna hate, but you use the cards you've got. And but I said to some of my mates because I wanted to do a bringer one right at the beginning, and they were like, "So what? So we come with you?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, you come with me." And then what? Oh, then we watch comedy. Oh, but I don't want to watch comedy.
Yeah.
I was like, "No, no, but, come support me." Okay, look, they're like, "Mate, I get it. We will support you." But I don't want to sit there for 3 hours and watch you for 5 minutes and watch a bunch of their words and
Yeah,
watch a
yeah.
bunch of cunts I don't know and don't give
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
about.
yeah.
I was like,
But
yeah,
also,
can you? Can you? They're
yeah,
like,
but
no,
also,
fuck off.
and also, it's like I do think it's, and oddly in London, I think it's a necessary, like a necessary evil, if you like. But I do think,
Gone full 360. That I used to be like that. I used to be all that good. I'm now 100% fuck them.
yeah,
Honestly, like especially when and I'm going on a rant now here, and it's pissed me off so much. I used to work in recruitment.
yeah,
I've done high end and I've done basic bitch recruitment. Like, basic bitch recruitment is like, I'm looking for a driver. I'll get 75 applicants to one job.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You haven't got to go out and find it. I was a headhunter. I still responded to every single one of them people if it was a no.
Yes, because no, it's because you're good. Like, that's empathy and knowing what it's like to be on the other end of that. Like I always think that when I've interviewed people in my job, is that especially if you've asked people to do, because some jobs as people get more senior, they have to do more stuff, and especially when you've asked them to do like a presentation or show their thinking in some way, like there's a respect thing of, but I need to tell you why I didn't choose you if I've not chosen you, but also you've given me like your time, so I've always felt like I owe you my time to then tell you like where are the bits that I think you can improve for me. You can ignore all my advice. It's a bit like comedy, like you can ignore all my advice, but this is what I think. So the next time that person goes for an interview, or your paths cross, and I think a lot of time people forget like how much paths cross, and being kind, was it, it's good to be kind on the way up because when
Get these on
someone's
the way
not
down.
kind on the way up and on the way down, which we all go on.
Exactly. And even if I will do an online 2 minute video course I'll put out there for free. How you can email every single person at once a Word document where it changes their name, changes that. So you haven't even got to do it personally, but let
Yeah,
people know. And I'm going to rant even further. There's this person who does it in Southeast London. I will not say the name. I've applied to 3 or 4 of his gigs. He's never responded, but he looks like, like the stereotypical guy from a 1980s, like Dungeons and Dragons, long hair. I used to call him like in the pub when you look at someone and it's just bad semen. That's what I just call it. Somebody who sweats in winter.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I love that phrase. I love phrases like that. As it, you just my favorite phrase in Newcastle is that the wind is so cold in Newcastle that we call it a lazy wind because it refuses to go around you. It just goes through you.
And no, and this guy, he doesn't even respond. And he was like, and I got annoyed. And I was like, okay, look, I'm doing okay in life. Why am I trying to appease this guy so much? Because I want to
Yeah.
go on his stage for 5 minutes for free.
Yes. And all, but
That was
yeah,
so
also
demoralizing.
yeah, but also like I did feel guilt. Like I think some people do it quite well, but I did feel guilty. I had friends come and watch me in London, and then I sort of realized that it was like not only have I asked you to come watch me and watch other people, and they're into comedy, so they were like they were quite happy. But I've then asked you to pay for that experience of watching me and these other people. And there's a bit that you need the money is needed because you need the money to, promote it, do the different things and support. But it is funny that when you're inviting your friends, there's like an awkwardness of, yeah, can you come along? And they're going, what are you telling me my night's costing? And especially when you've got kids and stuff, and baby, you're like going, oh yeah, I'm kind of saying that like to come see me, you're paying a babysitter, you're coming to watch me, you're going to buy some drinks because that's if you don't, it's considered really incredibly rude. And then afterwards, you're going to pay probably between £5 and £10, and if you don't, you're going to feel super awkward. So just do it, and I'll reimburse you later if that's all right.
Well, who was I speaking to about? Helen, Black Coffee, his one comes out tomorrow. Um, there needs to be a cost benefit analysis of doing a gig nowadays.
Yes.
Like you can say play
Especially when you
every
come from
room.
outside of London, because you like the tickets to get into London. Like I tend to try and look for nights where I'm in London anyway for work, so therefore I was paying that money, and then I just sort of hang around. But it's like, and then I've become like what looks like the most sad, super keen comedian that there's ever been. Because obviously comedians normally you just turn up like, what's the time? 7:15. I'll get there like at 7:20. But when you're already in London and your work's finished and you're like, yeah, I just have to go and hang around the pub
Uh,
till it begins, and it's like you're just like it's like yeah, I'm so keen, I'm here already. Can I help set up?
exactly, exactly. And I've done that. But I did one in Shoreditch, and it was my worst fucking gig because I started off a joke with and this is like my third ever gig. I was like, I hate the left. They made it so you can't laugh at fat people anymore. Makes this job a lot harder. But the second I said I hate the left, I lost them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I weren't even punching down. It was just, you know what
Oh,
I mean? Like my premise to get into it. And yeah, but I got there 2 hours early because I was flying to Spain on this is on a Monday night. I was flying out to Spain for a week on the Tuesday morning from Gatwick. So I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
I'm gonna go have a drink. Do you know what I mean? I got there
yeah,
to
yeah,
where so
yeah.
I'm staying there till the end to get pissed to get the last train down to Gatwick. And yeah, because I was there so early, I ended up having about 5, 6 pints before I went on.
Yes. And then
And
yeah, and then you're yeah, and it's like and it's knowing yeah, you're being and I do think that's the thing that I'm trying to get better at is the being present and being really in and of the room being the most important thing and actually getting used to the lights. I find that's the thing with getting stage time the past few it's just getting used to lights and knowing okay what does that mean and also the wandering like that's I watched foot you know you sort of you get yourself videoed and you
record all
video
your sets.
yourself and it's like you're just wandering around without purpose and you're just you sort of and then I was like, well, I need to stop doing that. And I remember like Duncan actually just gave a really good tip, and it was just he goes, stand still, and he goes, yeah, you look left, you look right, you look in the middle. That's the punchline. You look left, you look right, and in the middle. And he goes, and it's so like and obviously as you're better, you don't just do that. But it was such a like, yeah, okay. And the difference it makes of none of the stuff you've written has changed, none of the stuff that your delivery's changed, but you've just suddenly stood still, and because you're standing still, the room believes in you more because you're less wandery, and you're giving them signals to help them know when to laugh, which is a bit weird that you sort of think you have to do that, but then it works, and you're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Like, yeah, time
Yeah,
for you to laugh.
yeah. I mean, I've once again, I'm still new myself, but one thing I've noticed that I used to like redecorate the whole stage. Like out of nervousness, I'd pick some mic up, pull it over there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I picked on a 5 minute set. I watched back. I picked up my pint glass 10 times, but I didn't take one sip.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, the feeling of like something there, and it's
Yeah.
like,
But
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
do use the crowd now. I do walk around the crowd a lot, the stage a lot more now. but I use my hands a lot more in jest, almost like I'm orchestrating my own bit.
Yes.
So they're a little bit slower when I'm doing a slower bit. I push them up more when I'm doing a better bit,
Oh,
and I've
nice
noticed that
actually.
sort of helped me quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reason why I've learned all this quite quickly is by doing this podcast
Yes. Because
because I've
everyone has
yeah,
their bits of knowledge and their bits of things, and I think you do need to. Like you got to find it like and obviously, I'm very aware that there's like until you even know really what sort of comedian you really are and what you're going to be, it's like a lifetime's journey. Like you're never going to get there. You're going to evolve and like there's it's people saying the other day like at the moment I'm doing stories, but if I get better at writing and everyone on the WhatsApp group that I'm on will know this, if I get better at writing, it might be actually I suddenly become a really good one-liner because I suddenly clicks in your head and you're like, okay, that's what I now do and I can write that and do that.
So
But
why did you decide to be a storyteller and not a one-liner? Did you have that vision before you started comedy? Like who? Okay, if I had to say to you, when you looked, I was like, oh, I want to be a comedian. Who did you basically envision yourself being?
well, I think because of so growing up, obviously when I grew up, like there's obviously Billy Connolly in my family was just like
Yeah,
an obviously legend, and the way he just effortlessly sort of described stories and things and they felt so real. And actually growing up in Newcastle, you sort of with family, you could relate so much to it. And I remember wanting to have that. And then partly it was because of the life I've led, where I just feel like I'm just weirdly one of those people that stuff genuinely happens to that is just the things that you would talk about with people, but that you could see would have a broader, wide appeal. So like I mean, just an example of that. So when I was younger, I went on the Trans-Siberian, and it was because Northern I didn't have money. Northern Rock changed to a bank, and like what I probably should have done is like cashed it and saved money for a deposit for a flat or something. But I was like, oh, now I can get a ticket to go around the world. Sweet, I'll do that. But on the Trans-Siberian, we were going into Mongolia, and I was sat with this guy, and all of a sudden he started just chucking stuff out of the window. Right, and I'm going, all right. And he was like moving stuff. Just like, he didn't speak any English. He was from Mongolia. It transpired that he was actually worked for um, the people who come and do your stamping and your checks, like passport control, because they all came in my carriage to have drinks. So while they were doing the rest of the train, we were just doing vodka. Now, this is
right.
where total northern young person stupidity. They would pour a glass in the middle of vodka, and then you could take a drink, right? Now, I totally wasn't paying attention to the fact. It was only very late on that I noticed that it was okay to take a sip and that you didn't have to
You
neck it
didn't
off
have to
the
skull it,
pint.
yeah.
But I'd just been sculling it like every single time. And so by the time I got off the train, I literally was supposed to get you're supposed to get picked up by somebody. I couldn't see. I was so dry. I was like, I had to find somebody and be like, can you find, can you show me where the person is that's taking me somewhere? We got taken to a hotel so you could have a shower and clean up before we went like out into the middle of the desert. And I was so drunk that I went and had a shower, right, by mag light because I couldn't figure out how to turn the electricity on. And everybody was laughing at me because I couldn't figure out how to turn the electricity on. And they went, when we come back here, you're going to understand why we think this is so funny. And when I came back to this same place for a shower sober, on the key that they hand you, like the key, this
Yeah.
massive key, insert this key for the electric is written in big letters. In the room, there's a giant arrow. Like it's not a small arrow, like it's a giant arrow telling you where to put the key. And it was just like, of all these things that could happen. And I just found myself like, that's just fairly normal that that's the sort of thing that would happen to me that doesn't happen to other people. Just like my own stupidity or the situations I get in. But it just meant when I look back of what could you talk about on stage, it's almost like what don't I talk about? Like it's kind
Is
of,
that also you're only doing fives at the moment or tens? Like I guess like when you move on to twenties or headlining doing 35-minute spots, you've got the material almost ready to go.
yeah. And I think that's it. I
Uh,
think yeah, because at the moment, the challenge of the five, and that point goes back to the accent thing, is that the accents don't quite fit in the five. Like, and they're not in that story. Whereas if you were going in like the stuff from my sister coming back with a Scouse accent, although I did weirdly find this out, and if anyone from Liverpool does, listen to this, I thought this was a funny joke, but it's never landed because I think Scousers have got this lucky thing, which is they're very funny, but it's hard to take the piss out of them. And so I sort of had this thing, which was
I
she came
challenge
back with a
that.
Scouse accent, and I said, because she came back in the house and she was like that, totally Scouse, and like I was like, it's strange. And I said,
You are actually good at accents. You
and she
know what? I
said,
challenge that. You are good at
"Oh,
accents.
thank you.
You've done
And
your
she
as
said,
well.
I said, I thought being blind was harsh enough, but like, right? But it never like this dig at a Scouse accent was I think if it was Birmingham, I think people would really laugh because
Yeah.
Birmingham's like an acceptable accent to like it's okay to laugh at that. We've agreed collectively that Birmingham's okay, but Liverpool, is it funny? Is it bad that I don't? And it's interesting seeing why that accent doesn't work as a thing. Whereas I think if you did it as Birmingham, I think people, if she came over was like, "Good night, Mo, how's it going? It's all right, it's nice to see you." I think you'd be accepting of, "Oh yeah, that's pretty harsh. Yeah, you are blind and have that accent."
Um, I'm trying to challenge that, but are there some accents that are just taboo, or are they just genuinely not
Well, there's
funny?
definitely
Because I do think a Scouse accent is funny in comparison, but then my accent's probably funny to them. But it's something
exactly
that
like
I'm
Geordie, like
alienated
Geordie's a
to.
very Geordie's because I'm a Geordie and Geordie's a very funny accent. I mean, I remember growing up that the references to Geordie accents really were like there was a guy called Tim Healy who was in a Viz Impact. We had Spender, Jimmy Nail, and on question of sport, like I remember we had Peter Beardley, Peter, my life is going like Peter, and it's like they were the voices. And it wasn't until Ant and Dec came along that we sort of had like a more acceptable like Geordies that would get like talking more regularly on TV and stuff. So it's kind of interesting sort of seeing them just. I mean, I remember like my first bit growing up, the local newspaper is called the Evening Chronicle.
Yeah.
And genuinely, I was really shocked when I first learnt to read. Because I was growing up, I had always thought that the newspaper was the Donny Gale. And because the guy in Eldon Square that shouts out that it was like available to buy, when you're a kid, you just hear Donny Gale, Donny
No,
Gale.
yeah, okay. As big issue,
Yeah, like a big
big
shoot, like a
issue,
big
darling.
shoot. But I remember when I found out it was even Chronicle, I remember going to my dad and being like, I genuinely, I didn't, I thought it was the Donegal. I was like, I thought this paper gone out of print or something.
As being British though, I do think we do love to take the piss out of accents. One of my very close friends, when I had the pub, his name was Newcastle Steve. For self-evident reasons. He lived in Newcastle, then he moved south, and then all the time I knew he was south, but he moved up last year with his 18-year-old boy who's
Yeah.
got uni. When I saw them early on in the year, like I was like shithousing on his boy for every single like bit of northern twang he let slip now.
Yeah, but,
It's
but
like
also,
the prologue's like, I know, allow it.
well, the things I
And it's
still
like,
can't say, like the things I still can't say, like the things like double O still throw me
well,
because
like
like so MOOR, I know
more,
that it's more,
more.
right? But I want to say moor
Mew,
and like COUS,
couscous,
right?
couscous.
It's like there's funny things like the fact that like my family like I always find it funny when like in coffee everyone goes to order coffee, but
Say
like in here
town.
it's like a latte, but in Newcastle it's a latte.
What about town?
Tune, definitely
Yeah,
tune,
yeah, that's the
definitely
obvious one,
tune.
isn't it? Yeah. Up the tune.
Although when I did go to the Carabao Cup, I think it's the first time I've witnessed children seeing their dads cry for the first time, which was hilarious.
I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I will always say fuck Newcastle United. Fuck VAR. You guys are cheating bullshit. But also, I'm glad you are coming back to your heydays as well.
Oh yeah, although we can't sign anyone. Like, everyone's like, because Man U's such a glorious place to go right now.
Oh,
Like
fuck that. Well, yeah, what was that thing like? No, did you reject 120 million for Isaac or
yeah, I think I don't know what's going to go on there. I mean, it's all a bit mad, but it shows I know this is a comedy chat, but the PSR rules are clearly like totally fucked, aren't they? Because
Palace not being able to play in the UEFA?
yes,
Like, but it's fucking bullshit. But I'll go
yeah,
on, here's a go comment. So I was like, so in general, you've been doing it for about 7, 8 gigs now. What do you want out of comedy? And what
that's a
can the
great
comedy
question.
world get out of you? That's one of my new questions.
I think so. Yeah, I think I want it to. It's a hobby that I love and that I enjoy, 100%. And at the moment, it's definitely a hobby. You know, like because I can see that journey like that Lewis is on about to. I'd love to have a career in comedy. I think anyone who's doing it that says they wouldn't like to get paid for this, I just, of course, you'd love to get paid for it. Like, there's nothing better than talking to a group of people that weirdly you can connect with because, like, actually, so I work in strategy in advertising, and it's sort of funny that strategists feel like they can talk to other strategists, but like we struggle with other people.
Mm.
And comedians, I find, are a little bit similar. That if you get a group of comedians together, we find it very easy to talk to each other. And it's like we can sort of say things and have quite either serious conversations or we can take the piss out of each other, or it's like it's very open versus people who we meet as a wider part of life, we sometimes struggle with because we sort of feel like, yeah, I've got to perform, or I'm not, or you don't get me, or it's like it's a bit awkward. So it's like this thing. So I think one is a hobby. I'd love to get paid for it. I'd love to, if Lewis ever makes it, and he does make his "Have I Got News for You" dream, I'd love to be the opposite captain,
Okay.
and totally annihilate him every week. Um,
Huh.
and then I think what does comedy get out of me? For me, I think it's genuinely at the moment, it's this. A lot of people, and I don't think it's a bad thing that people are doing this because I think you're on a journey and I'm a bit older. And the journey is what are the stuff that we can talk about because we haven't quite lived life yet. Right. So, and
Right.
there's definitely a journey that you go on of like they say when you're doing films and directing, it's like, it's all well and good making a film in your 20s, but like you haven't really lived life. And so
Yeah.
your stuff will get better once you've just lived a bit of life and stuff's really happened to you and stuff's happened.
Like a teenager giving you business advice.
Yeah, like I always
I'll
find it
listen,
funny on
but
LinkedIn when you get the people whose faces like they're 23 and they're going, "Yeah, I'm a chief operating officer," and you're like,
I
no."
know I was one of them bellends. When I did my first company, the recruitment company, I said on my LinkedIn I was a CEO.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no, you just look like a bellend. And
yeah.
I
And well,
look back,
and it's a thing of there's a thing I say to people at my work that I manage, which was around. A lot of people can be you can be intelligent really quickly, but you can't get wisdom until you've had life. And no matter how much you
oh,
try
that's
and
good, yeah.
chase wisdom, you can't chase it. Like you have to go through a recession. You have to go
A
through
italic font somewhere in
challenging.
an office, isn't it? Fucking hell, that's
Yeah, yeah. But it's true because there's a desperation at the beginning to go quick and to be like, I want to get really fast. I'm gonna get to the end. And I think comedy, when you watch some of the people at the beginning, you see that there's that this is gonna happen really quickly. And you kind of, as you're older, you're like, I think if you look at most comedians, and I used to always be bought comedian autobiographies. I've got like a ridiculous bookshelf of them. It's like they're like most of them are a 10-year, overnight
yeah.
success. And I think people forget that. And I think because I'm already 46, I'm very aware that should I follow this incredible journey, like I'm going to be 56 if it actually, turns into something that can, fund my world. But also, I realized when I get old, I didn't want to be necessarily going to play cards and bowls. And I thought actually being a stand-up is a much better thing to be as a pensioner.
No, I agree with that. And the people you meet along the way, I think, and I think as well, with comedy, it always keeps you thinking. You're
Yes.
always training the brain.
Yes.
So,
Like actually, Ben van der Velde does these the workshops with crowd work, and he's made my commute to London so much better because you're constantly just looking and going, what would I say to you? What would I say to you? What is it about you that's interesting?
I
And
do
it
that in the shop. I always treat the checkout woman as a crowd work.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
instead of being used like headphones, they're like, oh, yeah, thank you. I'm like, you all right? How was your day? What we seen today? I just think yeah, it might make
Actually,
their day
it's
a little bit better.
it's funny you say it because that just used to be every day in Newcastle. When I first
Yeah,
left Newcastle, the thing that shocked me when I first came to London was how miserable everybody was that nobody
always
talked to each other.
miserable
And it was a
bastards.
brutal lesson because like you couldn't buy food in Newcastle without having a chat. Like if you bought your Fray Bentos pie, they'd be like, "Oh, is that a nice flavour? You recommend it? Is that good? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you make sure you got the deal on that?" And so you just always have a chat. Whereas like you came down to London and you're at the checkout and you're like, we're all just silent.
Yeah,
No one's saying hello or okay, different.
yeah. It is actually. Yeah, so that reminds me of Scott Bennett's bit where his dad phones him up and he's like, Miller Lite yogurt, six for a pound. Thank me later. and it just hangs up. That bitch has always stuck with me. But it was
I
such a northern thing. Like,
Yeah, because I have a bit I'm writing on the moment, which is around the fact that when you work in a supermarket, you're 16 years old, right? And it's generally older people, but like something's not on a shelf, they come up to you like the answer generally is it's either it's not in the back shop and we haven't put it out yet because we haven't got around to it, or we just haven't had a delivery. There's nothing more complicated. But they'll come up to you and go, "Why is there no coffee?" And you're like, and I just found myself lying a lot. I was like, wow, there's a war in South America at the moment. So, like, it's a bit difficult until the guerrillas stop, like, fighting and that, it won't calm down. And I was expecting this old lady to properly give me a look of, like, why are you lying to me? This isn't funny. And rather than do that, she looked at me completely straight and went, it's so nice to be told the truth for a change. I was like, yeah. And it's like, why would I know why tomatoes have gone up by 4p? Like, why have they gone up by 4p, son? And like, wow,
I'm in the inner circle. I'm stacking shells. I'm in the inner
yeah, yeah.
circle on this.
Yeah. Like, they really asked me. Although I do remember at QuickSave, they gave me a form to fill in once, which was like, what job do you want to have in your journey at QuickSave? And obviously like head of freezer, or I want to be like area manager. And I obviously was just a bit of a dick because I went in and handed my form in, and I'd written owner.
Yeah, PLC.
It's like, yeah. I was like, oh, and then can I buy you? That'd be great.
Well, going back to that tomato one real quick. I did this with my brother literally about 2 weeks ago. Well, no, but it must have been longer than that. When Iran got bombed the shit out of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think it's like 90% of the world's pistachios come from Iran.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
shit.
like
Of
my
course,
mum
yeah.
loves pistachios. We're like, should we call them up and be like, you're not going to be able to have pistachios for like 5 years? They've all been bombed out.
No, yeah, yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like this but it's funny, like around that world of like the sort of the realities of like supply chains and the fact that like, people just watch the news like it doesn't affect anything, and then you're like, no, no, that's gonna really affect the cost of your stuff. Wow.
So I know I put these up, but really fucking poorly, and they all dropped off. So I was
That's
like,
because
oh
your
yeah,
shoulder's not strong enough.
oh yeah, literally. And like, they just going one by one. I've seen three have gone like so far today, but fuck, ow. God. So Joe, we've been going on for a while now, so I'm going to do my ending question that I always
Cool.
love to end it with. You know what's coming. How big's your dick? No. What has been your favourite moment you've done on stage?
Yeah.
And what time did you bomb the hardest?
So my favorite moment, honestly, was the first time because it was just amazing. And I do have to thank my daughter for that because she was the one that like said I should go and do it and pushed me to go and perform. Um, and I think that feeling that you get when it's just going right and the energy's just right. I don't. It's so hard to explain to people. I didn't sleep all night. I remember coming home and being like, okay, how am I going to sleep then? As your brain's just like sort of wired and enjoyed it. I think the worst was definitely actually the second. Well, there's two. It was at actually I'll go for it was at G&B. And the reason why it was the worst is because I completely forgot the order of my sister kicking me in the nuts.
And
And
we started this fucking
I
podcast. We
know,
haven't
I
even
know,
mentioned
I
it.
know. It's just such a big moment in my life when she turned the lights out on me and did it. The the thing that was that because I hadn't set that up, I was just this nasty person to blind people. And I was literally and my thing was all the nasty things I'd done. I'd done this horrible thing. I'd done another horrible thing. And you could just feel the crowd going, you're just a horrible person. And you're there going, like being jovial and being like, no,
Yeah.
I'm like a nice person. And they're all just, and I remember looking at somebody in the crowd and they just, the look of disdain they were giving me. I remember walking away thinking, oh, I don't know if I can ever go back up on there. And that was just so awkward. And that, like, I didn't want to do it again almost. But then there's a bit of you, I think it's the 11 a.m. rule. You just got to forget it and
Yeah.
go, right, yeah, let's
You
get
know
back.
they've already forgot it.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, no one gives a shit.
But actually, the other example I give is I'd found a joke very funny from another comedian, and I tried to use it.
Oh, that's naughty.
And no, but as a reference, so I know
Right,
that comedian.
go.
And he'd done a bit that I found hilarious about how, like, to get a mortgage now, you basically are waiting for your parents to die or your grandparents to die or somebody to give
Yeah.
you money. Like, and you can't get a mortgage without that. And it was Jamie, and I was like, that's such a good joke. I was performing where I lived in Hitchin, and I thought everyone else had found it as funny. And I've gone on stage and I've said, oh, I'm performing in Hitchin, and I'd like to thank my dad, my grandparents, my like as if these people have died in my life. Like my mum did die when I was 12, but I've like done this set. But obviously they didn't remember his joke in the way that I'd remembered his joke. So I was just suddenly some weird person saying that I lived in Hitchin and that I liked my family. And that was a brutal moment of, oh yeah, they didn't pay attention to the same way that I had because his set was like three sets ago.
Guess what? You can't at the beginning. You can't make because as they're not hanging on to every word, you can't make them too
Yeah.
complex because you're gonna lose them.
Yeah, and I totally did that, and it was just like tumbleweed is coming.
Okay, and I'll do one more then. What's the worst thing you've seen someone do on stage?
Um, I think generally when people cross a line of like they are being just aggressive or racist,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and and it's not funny, and especially I think it does seem to be like there's a weird thing that there's a real say like a male obsession it seems within the open mic circuit around thinking that paedophilia is going to be funny, but then sometimes they're not funny, and they forget
I've never
how
done a
important.
paedophile joke. I've never done like
And it's like it's a weird thing where because sometimes they are good, like and Anthony Jesmond yeah, does the great joke of the girl at the bar, like and he says tells at your age, but there's a lot of people doing things which they've forgotten the important thing, which is it's got to be funny.
rule one. You can joke
It-
about anything. I'd ask that question, but I know your answer
yeah,
to it already. You can joke about anything,
yeah, you can joke about
but it's
anything, but
got to
you've
be
got to be
funny
funny.
first.
And
And don't
I've seen
punch.
people go
Don't do
up
an
and just
obvious,
go,
obvious punch
you're
down.
just having a rant. You're just having a rant and it's not funny. And you think it's funny because you're not a good, nice person, maybe?
Yeah. Whereas, but the thing is, I think the problem with like, society now is like they'll look at something and they'll try and find the racism in it.
Yes.
So it's like I've got a bit I'm working on right now, and it's like, what do you think's more degrading, being black and having a small dick, or having an OnlyFans and no subscribers?
Yeah.
But like
No, yeah,
that's not
yeah.
punching down. But the
No,
second
and
I
it's a
say, second
thought.
say black, they'll think, oh,
Yes. But also, actually,
racist.
so fair enough on accents, because I can do lots of accents and I've got, like, I've got a lot of different friends from different backgrounds, different cultures, and, live and work in
I have a
London.
black friend. I have a black friend.
Yeah, yeah. I have mates that are gay. That's all right. So I can be horrible. Um, no, but it's a funny thing of the like accents that you're not that you can't do because you can do. I think you can do any accent as long as it's in the context and it's funny. But there's an interesting thing right around certain accents tell you more about the person listening to the accent rather than the story
Yeah.
as to how it makes
So,
them feel as a non like so the example with right, so I can do an Indian accent, but the difference between Mumbai and Kerala, but because I used to work in India, right, and I actually got asked to go on India's Got Talent, but turned it down on the
see, I
basis
find this really offensive.
of
Oh.
like I just was like I'm not going India's Got Talent. I'm just not having it, right? I'm not being the Lenny Henry, of like coming around doing Frank Spencer, and it was like, but it was interesting that if you do that voice with Indian people and you're telling the story, an Indian friend of mine, or British friends who've got Indian parents, it's not you're not being offensive, but there's a weird reaction from white people who probably are racist, like and in a way that they'll be like, ooh, like they're so uncomfortable in their own feeling of racism
Yeah.
that they almost can't, and I find that sort of fascinating. And I think you've got to be, there's got to be a point to the voice if you do the voice. And I don't have anything at the moment, I have a
Well,
very
your Glasgow stories there, like your Liverpool one. With me, I
yeah.
tell you, with accents though, every accent I do ends up going back to Indian.
Yeah.
I think
Or
Indian then becomes the default
Welsh
Indian
and Indian are
accent.
very close, I find. Yeah, well, depending on where in India as well, because different and it's interesting sort of, you know, what comes across from different voices. But also I think it's making sure it's funny. Like it's funny to your point, it's not punching down. I think as soon as you punch down, you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I'll tell you just what I've got a new Var pal coming on in a couple of weeks, and he is considered like one of the top five greatest comedians in India of all time.
Oh, amazing.
and I've got him. So yeah, what was that? What's the places different? Mumbai and
Kerala and Mumbai. So tell him. So my thing is that in Mumbai, you have like this regal. I won't do it. You have this regal sounding voice, and it's so regal,
you do
and it's
your
sort
Indian
of
accent so I can record it and send it to him and get his take on it.
he can call me, and I'll do it. He can call me. I'll do it definitely to him.
You can think it'd be a
It's
call centre, mate. I ain't risking that shit. Like I ain't getting your house
um,
signed up. Things
but
are,
it's
one of the things I do love, I'll tell you now, I'll quickly jump in. I love one thing about comedians, and okay, 9 out of 10 out of them, some of them have an agenda, some of them are just ridiculous. Comedians know funny, and
yes.
they know there's no ill intent behind anything you say.
No, yeah, because you're not, because there's no value to you. There's no point in it, and you're
No,
just trying to, you've spotted something. So I spotted that there's a guy that I used to work with, the guy, Ashutosh, and he's a CEO, like, and he's got this booming, amazing, it's a beautiful voice, like regal voice, but he sounds like he's 6'6", but he's only 5'7".
yeah,
Like, and it's like that interesting thing of like the way the voice. And then my other friend Maps is like a mathematician genius, but his voice is Corellan and his tongue's very much in the back of his throat. But he describes all of this like technology and all this stuff, and you're just like in awe of it. And the two of them are just like a really interesting juxtaposition of like people would think around the voices versus what the reality is of those people, which is an amazing thing. And I just think I've always found that sort of stuff fascinating. And even like in my industry, like, we talk about this thing, like everyone talks about insights. And when a British person says it, it just sounds really boring. But if you say the word insight in different voices, you can make it sound super exciting.
yeah. But say if you went to like Brazil and started speaking, it'd be a complete different.
Yeah.
Like, but you say about them accents in my economics. I did at Brighton at uni, accountancy and finance. My economist, whatever the fucking called teacher was this 4 foot A, gay African Frenchman, and you could just envision the
Yeah.
dialect, the apps. It was just it was like I wasn't just he spoke with just such. I know it's not even correct, but I want to say fluorescence. It
Yeah,
was
no,
just
it's beautiful.
it
It's
was
beautiful. Like
yeah.
the funny thing is, I genuinely hate my own voice, and I
Hey,
listen to other
no,
voices,
I
and I'm
can't
like,
listen. I can't do the podcast. I cannot listen to the podcast back. I'll video clip them, but it'll be on the smallest amount of volume. I hate the way I talk.
yeah, but like other people's voices, you sort of hear me thinking, oh God, I wish I had that voice.
Whose
And
voice would you have?
the reason why I started doing accents actually, I was embarrassed because I had to phone people up and ask them questions, and I remember being really embarrassed that like your boss would go, you forgot to ask them something, and so instead of phoning up and using my voice again to say I'd forgotten something, I would just do a different voice as if someone else was calling them to ask for that question. It was like a total get out of a situation.
I used to do cold call sales, and there was a guy there called Thomas. I won't say his surname, but his nickname was Tommy Two Tie. He was the guy like at the end of a phone call, instead of saying thank you, he'd say fuck you, but they're obviously not listening, so they would
Yeah,
say
yeah,
thank you
yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he would every single person he cold called, he would put a bracket next to their name and then write the accent he put on during each
Oh,
one.
that's yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
everyone he
yeah.
would change his accent, and it made his day probably go a lot quicker.
Well, yeah, because you got to make. Oh, yeah, yeah. You just got to make yourself laugh. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like if you're not finding things funny, then people won't find you funny.
I just said right, Desmond, it's been absolutely brilliant,
Oh, thank
man.
you so much for having me.
I
It's
really
been
appreciate.
I do feel like a complete charlatan being on it, but I do honestly, it's been such a good experience and actually amazing to meet you. So thank you.
It's weird because this is actually one of the ones I think we could just keep going and going. Like so,
I'll wait till I've done 200 or 300 actual, proper gigs, and I'm less of a charlatan, and then have a chat again.
about yeah. Well, I say I do the Monday night online gong shows as well. Uh, you're always welcome to come on that and be a host as well if you want. Like,
Oh, amazing! Yeah,
like,
that'd be
I'm
great.
looking for other people as well to like come on who I get on well with, who can sit and take the piss out of the comedians. Because that's what I
Oh,
want to. I want to kill Tony vibe. I
no,
know
yeah,
Kill Tony's a bit of a
I'm up
wally,
for that.
but basically I'm looking for pricks, and I thought you straight away. I
Yeah, I
thought,
mean, and to be honest, you can tell I am by the fact that I've got my fake guitar and like a
oh,
just to make out as if I can, I can't even play it. It's just a prop.
oh, it's not. I was like, I tell you, one of them always pissed me off. At uni, there was a girl who always wore the Nirvana top.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the yellow smiley
The
face,
classic
and
one, yeah.
she didn't know who Nirvana was, and
No,
I know it enraged me.
yeah, although that's the thing that definitely made me feel old as a fan thing is that when you look at the people sort of look back at the 90s and somebody said it's like when you were in the 90s looking back at the 60s. And it
And
was
how?
like, oh, that's like
Yeah.
a brutal, yeah, that's where we're at.
Well, I'll do one final. My mate Hurley works in a college, and they're on Fridays. The class could put on some like music.
Yeah.
And one of them said, "Oh, can we put some classical rock?" And he was like, "Okay, cool. Who do you want?" And they were like, "Oh, Blink 182, Sum 41." And I was like, "Right,
He's like died
that
inside.
that that hit deep. Like we're not there yet. Like to me, that's Joey like Bon Jovi, Guns and Roses. No, Guns and Roses maybe, but do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
like,
It's yeah,
uh,
it's yeah, it's not
well,
good. But
well,
honestly,
I'm
thank you
bigger than
so
you, but
much.
hopefully you die before me. So yes. Des, have a good one, brother.
You too.
Appreciate this.
Take care.
Thank you.